Welcome traders to our post-week market review. So jumping straight into things here from where the market opened up. As we know, it was this candlestick here. If I go ahead and put this in white just so it's a little bit clearer. So you can see that the market opened up here. We established this in our midweek technical analysis. Overall price was bullish all the way up until 4,145. Price then tested this level a few times as a resistance before we then saw that clean break of structure at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, just sort of the hour after the New York session opened up, and price continued on bullish all the way up until around 4,245. From there, price then became bearish, dropping all the way back down to this previous resistance, indicating to us at the time that we was just sort of seeing that break and retest pattern, and we were sort of expecting price to go ahead and clear this high. However, as you can see, price obviously, if you just take that into account, so obviously if you saw the break of that resistance, price came back down to test as support, but you have to also take into account the rest of the price action. So what is the rest of the price action? So the price action we can see price creating higher highs and higher lows, higher highs and higher lows. However, as you can see now, we created a lower low. So that indicates to us that that is not a sort of certified break and retest structure or a break and retest pattern, and that can't necessarily indicate to us that we are going to see price fly or push further away from this area. We did in fact see price push away from this area, but we saw sort of price test at the level of 4,210 as we tested here, and then price completely broke structure at the level of 4,145 with the help of some economic news as well. This isn't just sort of just gold's price action. You're never going to see enormous bullish or bearish moves like this unless there's some sort of economic or political influence within the markets. So you can see that we saw that enormous bearish drop. Price dropped all the way down to this low here at 4,032. Price then pushed up, creating a sort of lower low and then a lower high, testing on previous support as resistance. So what does that indicate to us? So overall price action is bearish in terms of this sort of starting from here. We can see that bearish price action is in play, with lower lows and lower highs being created, and we've also created our next lower low and our next lower high on previous support. So we've tested as resistance on previous support, so indicating to us a break and retest pattern. What does that say? What does the guidebook, what does the rule book say to us? That says that we are going to see a continuation of this bearish momentum. However, you can see that for the next 6 hours after price performed that break and retest pattern, price was bearish. If I go down to our minute 15 real quick, you can see that volume completely stopped, as we normally do and as we normally see when gold's coming to a close on that Friday. But you can see that volume completely dropped, but the market was still bearish. So we will take this into account. Obviously now we do have low resting liquidity below these lows here, so we could potentially see a bearish continuation where we see price sweep past these lows here, and then sort of find a random support area potentially at like sort of 4,020, and then price pushes back up to that level of 4,145. I will say this now, that level of 4,145 is going to be sort of like that 3,663 level. Shout out to you if you know what I'm talking about. In a few weeks ago or a few months ago, a little while ago, we established a level when gold was trading at it that was a very key pivotal point for gold, and it was the level of 3,663. And we noticed that once price is trading sort of above that level, price was mostly bullish, and when price was below that level, we saw bearish price action. And we also saw once price came to that level, it was a very, very key level, or a very important level that we could expect if price was pushing down from a sort of bullish point of view, to test as a support. We could expect that level to test as a support quite significantly, and we could base trades off of that level. And then vice versa, if we saw a bearish move where price came to test it as a resistance, we almost sort of, not 100% because nothing's 100%, but we almost sort of knew that price would, that level of 3,663 would hold that level. So we're going to take this new level of 4,145 into account, not as with as much significance as that level of 3,663, because we've only really tested this a few times, but it is going to be that pivotal point that we're going to take into account. So if we see price break through that level with a certified breaker structure, we're going to expect price to continue on bullish. If we see price test at that level as a resistance, we're going to expect price to completely plummet back down. But With that being said, let's focus on what is at hand. So you can see that overall we saw this bearish drop. This is the main focus. We've established the start of the week up until around Thursday 3 o'clock. We saw continued bullish momentum. We saw some consolidation and resistance tested a few times before price then broke structure and pushed all the way up to around 2,445. But then let's just focus on this bearish move, because this is the move that we want to take into account. So first things first, I want to do a fixed range volume profile sort of from this bearish move and just sort of establish. I'm not going to mark these levels in, but I'm just going to sort of visualize these levels with you here. So we have our value area high. And you can see that that is the sort of pinnacle, that is the topmost point of this bearish drop, which is obvious that that is the value area high. We then have our POC, our point of control, which is very, very interesting, because you can see that the point of control started here. We can see that price began to consolidate, and this was normal price action. This was a New York session. You can see that price consolidated a lot. If we go to our lower time frames, if I just sort of drag this here just so we can keep that there, right? You can see that on the lower time frames, price consolidated at this level for a little while before we then saw that bearish drop, indicating to us that buyers and sellers were putting in a lot of orders. And it looks like, if you can see sort of underneath this bar chart, it looks like there were more buy orders than sell orders. And what did the market do? So it understood that people were in buy orders. People probably had their stop losses below any of these lows here, and the market movers decided to push price down, sweeping these lows, taking the buyers out of the trade, and then pushing all the way down, completely stopping out anyone who was in long positions here, and then the sellers would have capitalized on this momentum, and then you can see price pushed itself back up. Let's go back down to our hour one. Delete this drawing. Let's go to our minute 15 again, sorry. So you can see that we have our point of control, and our point of control was originally this area, and then you can see price came back up to this level to test it as a resistance. And obviously retail traders like you and I, we established this level as a point of control, and then price came up to this level. You sort of had that fear factor enter within the market, and you can see that price sort of ended up stalling at this level after this bullish push, and that is the reason why you saw that continued bearish push. And then you also have your value area low, which is actually interesting. So we have a value area low here, which sort of started here. And then we also can see that price tested as a support on it, and then we saw price test as resistance on it. So we can see that, okay, cool, these levels are, these fixed range volume profile levels are sort of key for us. And they are levels, they are levels that we want to take into account. But we're going to visualize these levels. We don't want to load of bars on our chart. We don't want to sort of to have too much noise within the chart. So we're going to sort of just visualize those levels. So obviously our value area highs here, our point of controls here, where we saw that consolidation and price came back up to retest it, and then sort of this little sort of consolidation on the low time frames, and then the test here is our value area low. So hopefully you can visualize that with me now. So let's go back to where we currently are. Price action is bearish overall in terms of since Thursday. So what could we expect to see? We could expect, there's so many things we could expect to see, and I will finish this post-week market review in an unsure sort of bias, because the thing is, I can't every week in, week out, give you an overall or a personal opinion bias if I don't have one, because that would be silly. There's no point giving a bias if I don't know, or I'm not 100% sure. So one thing I will say is I will be waiting for price to open up tonight at 10 p.m. GMT, and then let the sort of Monday market moves play out, and then sort of re-establish sort of end of day on the Monday with our start of week technical analysis, and just sort of re-gauge what we could expect to see from sort of start of week price action. But there's a couple of things that I can point out. Is we've seen prices bearish, we've seen price create that low, we've seen price create that lower high, and we can sort of see price beginning to stop at around this level. But there's a few secondary levels. For example, we have a small level here that we could expect price to push down to. We have this level here, and then obviously we have these lows. Anywhere price pushing anywhere down to here is going to sort of be that last fail safe. So we see price push here, and we're looking for price to sweep this lower S in liquidity, and then sort of push back up in a bullish fashion. However, we could see price test at a support on a lower time frame level, and then push back up. But obviously now we've established that visual level through here, that value area low. We see price push up into this level. We'll expect a resistance to be held. If we don't see a resistance held and we sort of see a breaker structure, cool. We're then looking for that main pivotal point I spoke about, that level 4,165. But like I said, it's an unsure point within the markets right now. There's not too much we can actually give. This is not. We can just sort of go over what's actually happened. And overall, market has been bullish, and then we saw an enormous bearish drop, and with price creating lower lows and lower highs. So if we just take into consideration the current price action that we are seeing, we're going to expect a bearish continuation. Overall market bias can't really give you that. The one thing I will point out though is on our daily time frame, it looks a lot scarier on the lower time frames, but as you can see, saw this bearish drop. We saw that consolidation for that week, price then broke structure, consolidated for a week and a half, price then broke structure to the upside. We consolidated in the week before last consolidation area, price then pushed up, broke structure, and then price pulled itself back down. But you can see that the bearish move on the lower time frames looks scary, it looks violent, but you look on the daily time frame, it doesn't look too bad. It sort of definitely has potential for Monday to sort of open up, and we could see a bullish engulfing pattern here, where price sweeps the entirety of the sort of since Thursday bearish move, when price carries all the way back up to around 4,218 to 4,200. We could potentially see something like that. So there's a lot of things to take into account, but I think we need Monday's price action to sort of really go ahead and have a look and sort of establish an overall bias for the next week. So yeah, that's pretty much it for our post-week market review. Sorry, there's not too much information. I'm covering everything I possibly can, and like I said again, I'm not going to give you a bias if I don't have one. But I think if we just take into consideration, let's sort of be a beginner trader, we can see that we've seen a bearish drop, we can see lower lows and lower highs being created. Let's just expect that price is going to continue bearish. If we don't see price continue bearish, we'll re-establish in our start of week technical analysis, and we'll give our proper overall bias. But as always, I hope you have all enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Remember, if you haven't already, purchase a prop challenge with the link in our description below. Join our Discord for promotions. You can get up to 35% off right now, I believe. And obviously, Black Friday is coming soon, so stay tuned for a potential offer there. So yeah, that's going to be our post-week market review. Hope you've all enjoyed. Peace.